I'm interested in so many things, but I don't know how to manage it. Now, the good thing about that is that you realize that having multiple interests is not a curse. So there's a good thing in there, but then there's also the not so good thing of indecision, right? You don't know, what do you start with? How do you even vet all of these things? How do you manage all these things, right? These are the questions that we're going to answer in this episode. My name is Eugene, and I'm a 30-year-old self-educated, what now, Nigerian? I don't know. What else do I tell you? Anyway, how do you manage your multiple interests? I think that the first question there will be, how can you know that these interests are yours? Right? And I think that that's a valid question. You may not think it is a valid question, but it is a valid question, and I'll explain it to you. The world as we know it is in a chaotic place. There's so much noise in the world right now. With the rise of content creators like me, podcasters, and influencers, there's noise. And if you cannot stand your ground, if you don't know who you are, you'll be pulled in so many directions. And that's what I mean, that it is possible to have interests that are not yours, right? And so the very first thing you want to do is to filter the interest so that you can get to the point where your interests are authentically yours. Because here's the thing, as a content creator, every time I show up on screen, whether here on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or whatever, I want to do a good job. And guess what? Doing a good job as a content creator means that I'm able to persuade, that I'm able to put my ideas out and convince you or whoever is listening that, hey, this is the way to go, this is the thing to do, this is how to think about this, right? And so there's so much ideology baked in to my success as a content creator. There's so much persuasion that I have to do. And guess what? I want to do a good job. And that means that I have to be really, really good at persuading whoever is listening to me, right? And the back end to this is that you as the receiver are subject to my ability to persuade, right? Now, there are millions of content creators just like me who are out there trying to persuade you over something. And there's a very good chance, especially if you're impressionable, if you're easily influenced, there's a very good chance that you have been persuaded over things that you're not exactly interested in, right? And so right now in the world, there's chaos. And one of the chaoses in the world is that there's the illusion of interest. I met somebody who told me they have almost like 30 interests. And it's like, how did you get to 30 interests? How are they all yours? You know? Now, I'm not saying that they can't be possibly yours, but it's like, dude, we need a way to filter, right? Like, we need to filter the noise. Like, what are some of the things that you have just merely been convinced about or merely been sold, right? But you wouldn't commit to. We need to take those things off the list. Those are not interests. So we need a way to filter. And how do you filter? One of the things that I learned from Jay-Z, actually, this quote is just attributed to him. I've checked on YouTube and I've not found any video of him actually saying it, but it's been attributed to him that he said that if you cannot buy twice, you cannot afford it. And that's a very interesting financial principle if you think about it. What it means is that if you want to buy something, you think that you're ready to buy something. How you measure that readiness is by your ability to double buy, to buy again, right? And that makes a lot of sense. Like, financially, that's a principle that you should practice. That's a principle that we all should practice, because so many times we think that, oh, you know what, just because I have the desire to do that, then that means I'm in a place to do that. It's like, no, desire is not the proof of interest. Competence is the proof of interest, all right? So can you do this thing? Can you do it and still stand, right? Can you buy this thing and still have money in your account? Can you buy this thing and still survive your everyday life, right? And the way that I've adapted this also, when it comes to like interest or filtering your interest, is that if you cannot commit twice, then you're not interested. That's a very brilliant thing to think about. This is not just because, oh yeah, Eugene, you're the one who came up with it. It's like that's a brilliant thing to think about, right? Because there's so many of this fluff that we have um, introduced into our list of interest. These things are not exactly things that we would love to commit to, right? And even if you love to commit to, you wouldn't want to commit to it twice, right? And this has helped so many persons that I've spoken to. Give me a sec, please. I need to turn off this AC. All right, so these has helped so many persons that I've spoken to, because all of a sudden they realize that, just because I was interested does not mean that I'm committed. And if I'm not committed, then how am I even interested in the first place? And so what I'm trying to say is that at the end of the day, hard work is the only proof of interest. Okay? The only way to gauge whether you're interested in something is by asking yourself, would I be willing to work hard for this thing? And in my case, or the way that I've adapted this, is that you should think about the requirements, because every pursuit, every goal, every desire, every interest has requirements. Some are financial requirements, some are time requirements, some are mental requirements, right? Think about all the requirements of your interest, right? Your multiple interests. Think about the requirements of all these things, right? And then double it, right? So if you think that, oh, you know what, I'm interested in this project, I want to do it, and then ask yourself, if this project took longer than I'm thinking, right? If this project took 2 years rather than 1 year, would I still be interested? If this thing cost $5,000 rather than $2,000, would I still be interested? Right? Ask yourself, because things are always more expensive than we think, right? Things take longer than we assume. People like me, content creators, we're really good at making things look fancy and easy, or maybe simple. But that's the illusion I'm talking about. So it casts an illusion of, oh, you know what, that's easy to do, that's simple to do. So you just add it to your list of interests. Like, no, these are the things that we have to cut away. And the only way to cut it is by asking yourself the pertinent question of commitment. Can I double commit to this thing, right? And then you're going to see, if you go through this exercise, one of the first things you realize is that your list of interests will shrink, right? There's so many things that you think you're interested in that you're not interested in. And the way that you know that you're not interested in is because you wouldn't commit to them, right? And more so, you wouldn't commit to them twice. I know I'm overflogging this, but I'd like to remind you of a story. There's a story in the Bible about Jacob, who went to marry from a particular family. And the requirement was, you know what, you're going to work for, I think, 5 years, right? And the father-in-law, he dealt with Jacob. After he had finished working for 5 years, the man said, guy, you go need run that thing again. Like, you have to pull it off again. And then Jacob was now torn between, look, do I really want this thing? Do I really want this girl, right? And the way that I'm going to prove that I want this girl is my willingness to do it again, right? And so he had to work 5 extra years to get the girl that he actually wanted, right? And so that's what I'm saying, that the way to dissolve the illusion of interest is by asking yourself, if this thing took longer, would I still do it? If this thing cost more, would I still be committed, right? Because there's so many of us on social media, so many of us content creators whose success is based off of our ability to persuade, our ability to make things look simple and enticing, right? And so you can't add those things to your list of interests. You have to strike them off. You strike them off by asking yourself the commitment question. At the end of the day, it is hard work that is the only proof of interest. If you're not willing to work hard for it, you're not interested. Great. I've overflogged this, right? So by now, if you practice this exercise, your list of interests would have shrunk, and then we'll be ready to get into the second part, right? So the first part is filter your interest, right? And you filter your interest by using the test of double commitment. The second part will be to convert your interest into skills. Look, skills are way easier to manage. It's easier to manage skills than it is to manage interest. I've seen a lot of people complain about having multiple interests, but I'm yet to see a person complain about having multiple skills. And the simple reason is that it's easier to manage skills than it is to manage interest. Okay? Practically, what I mean is that a person who knows how to cook and knows how to play piano and is a public speaker, right, is in a better place than a person who wants to know how to cook, who wants to know how to play piano, and who wants to know how to speak in public. The first person has the problem of schedules, right? And that can be solved with Google Calendar, right? But the other person has a problem of confusion. How do I even begin? It's like, that's the reason why so many of us are incapacitated. It's that we're in the interest land, right? So it's not a big deal. It's not a problem to be a jack of all trade, right? If you are a jack of all trade, because a lot of us, we make it look like, oh, being a jack of all trade is a big problem. It's like, no, it's cool. It's a great thing to be, right? If you have the skills to be the jack, right? But so many of us are just interested jacks. Okay, and so that's the thing that you have to change. You have to convert your interest into skills. How do you do that? How do you convert your interest into skills? You do that by working seasonally, right? Now that you know that your interests are genuine, you have, let's say, 3 or maybe 4 or maybe 5, whatever your number is, right? You have 5 genuine interests, okay? You convert those interests into skills by working seasonally, okay? By being seasonal, by saying, you know what? Okay, great. It takes 6 months of consistent practice to be proficient at piano. I'm just saying, right? So it takes 6 months. Now, I'm going to have to give 6 months. I'm going to have to block out 6 months in my calendar to make this a priority, right? So for that season of your life, you have to work consistently in becoming a pianist, right? It doesn't mean, watch this, it does not mean that you're abandoning your other interest. It just means that for this season, this is the priority, because seasons necessitate prioritization, right? Some of you are in a season where you have to focus on one thing, right? You're in a season where, oh, this is the priority. It's just your relationships. So that's how to pull it off, right? It's a seasonal thing. Your learning phase has to be seasonal. Your execution phase can be multi-twined, right? It can be intertwined. You can do them all at the same time. But when you're learning, you got to be seasonal. You're trying to build patterns. You're trying to teach your brain how to, look at the piano and see how it works, all right? And also to teach your hands, your fingers, and how to, navigate it, right? So it's a big thing. It has to be, a seasonal thing, and you have to block out time for that, right? Because when you're able to do that, and then you get good at being a pianist, and then you get good at being a chef, and then for the next season, you get good at becoming a public speaker. That's easier to manage. Remember what I said? It's easier to manage skills than it is to manage interest. So that's the answer, right? If you're in the learning phase, aka you're multiply interested, you got to be seasonal, right? Block out time and learn. Block out time and educate yourself around one thing per season. You're not abandoning the other things, you're just prioritizing, okay? Once you're able to do that, you get into another season where something else is a priority, and it's fine. That's how it works. That's the only way to become the jack of all trade, right? By the way, the full quote, I'm sure you know, is jack of all trades, master of none, but oftentimes better than the master of one. Okay? You may not become a master, right? But you would have become proficient that you don't have to worry about your multiple interests, because so many of us have multiple capabilities, right? But we don't worry about it. I don't worry about my multiple capabilities. When I used to be, interested in multiple things, that really got me worried until I found this code and I cracked it. And that is what I have shared with you today, right? So phase one, clear of the illusion of your interest, right? How do you do that? You filter it with your commitments. And I would say go a step further by filtering with double commitment. Stage two, convert your interest into skills. And how do you do that? By being seasonal in your learning phase so that you can multitask in your execution phase, right? So that's how to pull it off. That's the video. Thank you.